initiate self-destruct sequencing.
Welcome to my Mando and Me, our terrible review miniseries.
My Mando and Me.
If we haven't met before, hi, my name is Robert.
Hi, I'm James.
I'm Nathan, and I'm looking for Amanda, a Mandalorian.
We're taking a break from regularly scheduled programming to share our thoughts on each chapter of Season 2 of The Mandalorian on Disney+. After each chapter airs, you can expect a review to drop the following Sunday. This week, it's Chapter 10. Lock spoilers in attack position. From here on out, we're in spoiler territory.
Lock air spoils in attack position.
Chapter 10, The Passenger. Directed by Peyton Reed. Written by Jon Favreau. The Mandalorian must ferry a passenger with precious cargo on a risky journey.
We'll walk through the chapter chronologically, covering what happens along the way, and share any thoughts or notes we have as we progress.
This chapter starts out with what looks like following the morning after the events of Chapter 9. Mando's traveling via speeder bike back to Mos Eisley with the child and Fett's armor in tow, and bandits spring a trap for the Mando to stop him in his tracks. We get a really neat fight where the Mando struggles a bit, but then ends up winning the fight, and then we get a bandit putting a knife to the neck of the child. And this is where I get, this thing that I said back when we were reviewing Season 1. When you hurt the baby, you're screwed. And so I like this scene a lot. This is some of that good Peyton Reed humor showing up. You get the tension of the knife against the child's throat, and you kind of know nothing bad is going to happen. Like I'm sitting there looking at this and I'm like, where's he going to go? And the Mando kind of tells him, like, if you hurt that child, there's nowhere you can go where you can hide from me. You're in the middle of the freaking desert. But whatever. He bargains, the Mando bargains with him, with whatever he wants in exchange for the child. And the bandit selects the Mando's jetpack.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like the way that they showed the alien guy kind of looking over at Fett's helmet. I almost thought at first that he was going to bargain for that. And it turns out that would have been the better choice, honestly.
Yeah. And so he gives the jetpack over, the bandit goes to run away, and then the Mando just trips, some buttons on his wristband and sends the bandit flying up and then falling to his death. And when that happened, all that would run through my mind was drop dead, asshole. And another thing, like we talked about in the last episode about the child being pretty observant. As soon as that happens, we get the child looking over at Mando and kind of smirking. Like he actually looks kind of like, hey, that was funny. The child's starting to get a little bit dark, and you'll see as the episode goes on, I'm a little worried about how this child is going to be in the future. A lot of negative influences going on.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm given this cold opening here, I'm kind of honestly surprised that it picks up exactly where Chapter 9 ended. I mean, Mandalorian's armor is even still kind of like covered with that green goo and stuff from the crate dragon guts. Yet we don't get a continued tease for Boba Fett. And this scene definitely establishes that more bounty hunters, presumably working for Moff Gideon, are pursuing the Mandalorian child. So it kind of continues their whole, like, they've got to stay on the run. They can't slow down.
Yeah.
Okay. Because when I was watching this, I didn't really see the connection for this scene to the overall story arc for the season, in that, what does it set up? What does it continue? What does it introduce? And it just seemed to be like a cool little fight where, we see the Mandalorian fighting, using the tools he has available, and then just nothing really seems to connect. But I hadn't considered and I didn't see them as bounty hunters. I just saw them as like random bandits who happen to see somebody coming along and just try to take their luck and then take the stuff.
I could see that, but the fact that they specifically call out, grab the child. Yeah, sure. Maybe it could have just been like, oh, there's a kid there. Grab the kid. We'll ransom him. Mm-hmm. But the way Disney has specifically been calling this the child, I personally am going to assume that it's a specific call out of for whatever they got some information that, hey, Mandalorian is on Tatooine. Maybe they followed the trail of the previous gangster that he killed or allowed to be killed on the other planet, and was like, all right, he's going to Tatooine. Let's surprise him and do the old Ewok rope trip.
Yeah, that makes sense, because if it had just been a random group of bandits, they probably would have had written the line as, hey, grab that kid, or don't let that kid get away. But the fact they used the phrasing specifically, the child, makes sense, and they would allude to that to them being bounty hunters. So I'll buy that.
Yeah. So after having defeated all of the bandits, the Mando and the child are kind of left stranded. And so the Mando loads everything up on his shoulders and begins a super ridiculously long walk to Mos Eisley, making me wonder just how hot it might get in that Beskar armor walking out in those twin suns. But after a long walk, the Mando arrives in Mos Eisley, finds Pele Moto playing a game of sabacc against an insectoid creature named Dr. Mandible, a giant ant. And then this is where I was like, oh, yeah, Peyton Reed directed this episode, didn't he? Ant-Man director, giant ant alien in a cantina. Oh, by the way, more cantina, baby. Yes.
I mean, to be fair, it's the same cantina we've already seen twice now in the span of 10 chapters. So
Yeah, because all rock stars just have a slew of cowbells to bring up every time they start playing a cowbell, and it's not the same one from last concert. So
yep, don't care. Same cantina, new cantina, more cantina. That's all I care about.
Yeah, it was nice to see that the game of sabacc continues to be popular in the galaxy, and having Peli Moto win with an Idiot's Array hand is a nice touch, because that's been featured a lot in the extended universe, like in the novels and everything. I think it even showed up in the Solo movie, and I know it was an episode title for an episode of Rebels when Lando was there. So
Yep.
that was nice.
Yeah, right. Neat little connections like that to reward the people that are paying attention to all of the different Star Wars properties.
It rewards you without like being a giant neon sign saying, "Look at this! Look at what we did! Haha, we're special."
Yeah, and I don't like using this phrase, but like it's fan service, but in the good way. You know, it's rewarding those fans that, you know, again, watch all the Star Wars properties and pay close attention without beating us over the head with it. So really, really neat stuff there. So after being duped to provide the money to help to Dr. Mandible to help her win, she ends up hustling both Dr. Mandible and the Mandalorian out of his money. And they go back to the Razor Crest. And actually, in their conversation, she convinces the Mando to put money into the game because Dr. Mandible has information on a contact that knows where to find more Mandalorians. He gets that information anyway, and then they meet back in the hangar with the Razor Crest, where Pele Moto introduces him to a new character called in this episode, they only refer to as the Frog Lady, whose husband has information on where to find a Mandalorian covert.
I on my second watch through, I had the subtitles on, and I don't know why, but I was oddly amused by the phrase in the subtitles, "Frog Lady speaking frog." like even in the credits of this episode, they don't bother giving this a character a name other than Frog Lady. But fun fact, her vocals are provided by D. Bradley Baker, who's a voice actor known for making a lot of animal-type noises. He was Appa the Flying Bison in Avatar: The Last Airbender. And also, Baker provided the voices of all the clone soldiers in the Clone Wars CGI series. So it was cool to see him back.
Yeah. In this scene...
Or hear him back, I guess.
Hear him back, yeah. In this scene, Pele explains to Mando that the Frog Lady needs help getting to this estuary moon called Trask, where her husband is, where they're basically going to start their new life. And she has these eggs that are her spawn that are like the last of their family line. and it's important that she gets there to help to her husband so that they can fertilize those eggs, and that's the price for getting the information about where the Mandalorian covert is located. And he reluctantly agrees because there is a caveat where they can't travel to hyperspace because for some reason the eggs would die if they did. And I think this is a neat little thing because we don't get a ton of subspace travel in Star Wars. And I thought this was a really cool explanation for why, because the Mando explains how, traveling in hyperspace is how he avoids trouble, because traveling at subspace, you're slower, obviously, and so people can catch up to you easier. The Razor Crest is an older ship, so it might not be as fast as some of the other ships running around these days.
Well, not only that, but like until the sequel trilogy, until Last Jedi, they established that tracking people through hyperspace is not a thing. Like, it wasn't a big plot point until in The Last Jedi when they're like, oh no, they're following us through, hyperspace. That's not good. We're going to get captured. So if he's trying to stay on the run and wanting to be fast about it, yeah, he's not likely to be tracked as much if he's going through hyperspace.
Yeah. My last note on this scene is that I prefer my crate dragon cooked medium.
I'm not some Rhodian, for crying out loud.
I don't do medium rare. Sorry, that's a little too rare for me. So
yet another use of a pod racer engine, which was kind of cool.
That was, yeah.
Yeah. And we get a Treadwell droid cooking the meat too, which was nice to see other droids, making a comeback in this series. And then right before they leave, the child does look a little too interested in the frog lady's eggs. And I start looking back at the previous season. It's like, she's a frog carrying baby frogs. The child ate frogs in the previous season. I think I know where this is going, but I hope I'm wrong. Spoiler alert, I wasn't. So they get on the ship and they start traveling to Trask. And as they're traveling, the child kind of starts taking more interest in the frog lady's eggs, who leaves them unattended for some reason. For such an important family line they need to protect, she just kind of leaves the eggs just lying around. The child finds them, and then we later on, the Mando catches him eating the eggs. Great, there we go. Now, we're not totally happy with the child, but it's so hard to stay mad when he's so cute.
It's one of those weird things of like, at first, like, okay, first thought is, yeah, he's going to eat it. But then we get that brief moment where it looks like he's maybe using the Force to do something with the eggs when he's looking at the canister. And you think, oh, maybe something else is going to go on. Nope, they're just going for the obvious munch, munch, munch. I'm a hungry little child. And that's disappointing.
Yeah. They are interrupted by 2 New Republic X-Wings in their travel. We get a return of Dave Filoni's Wolf X-Wing pilot character, which is nice.
Trapper Wolf, thank you.
Trapper Wolf, sorry. And then another character that that is new to the series. Carson, I believe, is his name. And
that sounds about right.
And so they ask the Mando basically to confirm his identity. They're scanning the area for Imperial holdouts. And of course, the Razor Crest has some history with the New Republic, thanks to Chapter 6 of Season 1. And so he's trying to avoid giving away his identity, but eventually is forced to, with some really nice callbacks to like Han having conversations with the Empire and trying to like hide his identity. They do that whole like making up things on the fly and whatever. And, the frog lady makes a noise and he kind of dismisses it as some part on the ship acting up. And I got a lot of vibes back to the detention cell scene in on the Death Star with Han.
Everything's under control. Situation normal.
What happened?
Had a slight weapons malfunction, but everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
Transmitting now. Be quiet. What's that? Nothing. The hypervac is drawing off the exhaust manifold.
So he's forced to ping them. They realize that it's the Razor Crest involved in the attack on the New Republic prison ship in Chapter 6. And they lock X-Foils in attack position, prompting the Mando to run away as fast as he can.
Yeah, this definitely had kind of a feel of like a traffic stop. It's like it gives the New Republic kind of seems to be taking their role as the new police in this new post-imperial status quo. I found it interesting.
So the Mando runs away, and we get a chase scene. They enter the atmosphere of an ice planet called Maldo Crace. And after some
did we actually get a name for it? Like
I
know
had
I
to
didn't
look
see...
it up. I had to look it up.
Oh,
It wasn't specifically referenced in the episode. I had to look it up.
Yeah, see, that goes back to my grievance I had about the first season, where like me personally, I prefer to know like where we're going, what planet we're on, just some little indicator. I know when the first trailers for season 2 were coming out, there were all these scenes on the ice planet, which is what's happening here. But everybody was like, oh man, are they going to go to the Kyber Crystal planet to Ilum? Like, oh boy, there's ice. Because of the typical thinking of like, it's Star Wars. You see ice. It's got to be one of the 2 ice planets we see, either Hoth or Ilum. Mm-hmm. But like, this definitely is not Ilum, because they are on like 2 opposite sides of the galactic map. There's no way they're going to go from Tatooine to there just in sublight in a short amount of time.
Yeah, and they do establish that the system that they're going to is basically next door. So they end up in atmosphere on Maldo Crace, and after some impressive maneuvers to evade the X-Wings from Mando, they do eventually evade capture. We do get a trench run, and we do get a line about turning on the targeting computer. So I thought that was pretty neat, like nice little trench run callback to Episode 4, A New Hope. At least it got me excited.
The Razor Crest does have some sweet maneuvers for such an old ship, even if at the end of it, it doesn't quite stick the landing.
So speaking of sticking the landing, right after they escape, the X-Wings kind of take off. Mando goes to leave, and then the ground underneath them breaks, and they fall into an icy cavern, knocking all of them out. They wake up later, but presumably probably an hour or so later or something. Just a little bit of time has passed. Enough, I thought, which was a neat little detail, for Mando to be frozen to the console, because he goes and kind of pulls himself, and you get this ice breaking sound effect, and he's got frost developing on his Beskar, which then begs the question, does it get cold in that armor on an ice planet? Many questions I have about Beskar armor that I would love to have answered, but that's okay. The ship is kind of in shambles. Mando checks on Frog Lady. She's cool. And then he goes back down to check on her eggs because she seems concerned, and to also look for the child, because in all of that mess, he's kind of disappeared too. And of course, he finds the child eating more eggs. Bad child. This episode definitely struck some notes with me as a dad of a small child that is currently basically eating everything that she sees. So I was definitely feeling the Mando's pain in this episode.
Yeah, even if you can account for the child being the equivalent of a toddler or something, like they're really trying to paint him like as a menace this episode. Like he's eating all of this frog lady's spawn. He eventually, later on in the episode, when we get to the creature feature, he eats a spider and attracts the rest of them. Like they're not painting the child in a good light here. Like seriously, especially when all they had to do was like put a child lock on the egg container. Like, come on, if they are this important to Frog Lady, why is there not even just a child lock, any kind of lock on that top?
Yeah, I was watching this with Jacob, and he said the exact same thing. Why is it so easy for the child to get into that container? So it's
yeah. So Mando stops the child from eating more eggs, assesses the damage to the ship, and decides that he needs to wait until morning to repair it for some reason. I'm not sure why that. I can't remember exactly what his reasoning was, but I know that in the 2 times that I watched it, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. You can tell the Frog Lady's not happy.
Maybe in the morning it's going to be warmer, and I don't know, maybe it'll be easier then.
he does mention that it is going to get cold. So we get the Frog Lady's upset because she doesn't want to wait to repair the ship. She's desperate to get to her husband. And as Mando takes a nap, he is awoken by a frighteningly, why can't I say that word? Frighteningly familiar voice of Zero, a member of the criminal gang from Chapter 6. Again, another callback to Chapter 6.
It's a nice callback, but like, I just don't understand why the Mandalorian hadn't already like sold him off for scraps. Like, yeah, the Frog Lady, reprograms, uses his vocalizer to talk and everything, but like Mando makes a point of like, that's a killer droid. Then why is it still on your ship, man? Like,
why'd you keep it?
Yeah.
Just get a couple credits, sell it off to Pelimoto or something. I don't know. She's got a ton of droids.
Yeah, so but she apparently also knows how to hack and reprogram droids and use their vocabulators to translate her language. But I did like that this was she's desperate, she wants to save her family, and she found a way to be able to communicate to Mando because he does say he doesn't speak their language and doesn't understand her. And so, she's able to finally communicate to him why, she needs to get off this planet so badly. But one thing that, it's good for reminding the Mando, but also like, it just makes me wonder is that she invokes the Mandalorian code, basically guilt trips him into like, I thought you were Mandalorian. Don't you have a code to keep your word and all this kind of stuff? And like, I just started to think like, damn, a lot of people do that in this series. Like, they're like, I thought you were, you get Queel, you're a Mandalorian. You guys have tamed the great, this and all this kind of stuff.
The Mythosaur.
Yeah, the Mythosaur. You guys have done all these amazing things. And then later on, like, oh, it's so hard to find Mandos these days. And even the client is like, oh, I thought, that the whole thing was secrecy and all this kind of different thing. Like, everybody seems to know a lot about Mandalorians and their code, but we can't get an answer for why he won't take off his damn helmet.
As a small point, the client thing, I think that was more of a bounty hunting thing than Mandalorian code.
But my point was that he seems to know a lot about Mandalorians, but nobody knows why they don't take off their helmets. And it seems to always be used in a way for them to manipulate or push the Mando in the direction that they want to. But whatever. He needed reminding that there is a creed he made, and he needs to stick to that creed. And so it's fine at the end of the day, but it's just like another person who knows about Mandalorian code.
And I found that very annoying as well. But then it was followed up with a plot point that this is the Frog Lady's last brood. This is the last set of eggs that she will develop for her and her husband. So it kind of paints a more, okay, maybe we don't know how long these eggs are actually going to last. Maybe it's even worse because of them being on a very cold planet. So there's a much more desperate need for them to get off planet. But I do agree that how would she know about the creed? That's such a silly thing for her to pull up. But,
yeah. And it does strike a chord in the whole foundling category for him too. Like, he can relate to that, right? He's a child whose parents are gone. He's technically the last of his own line. He's got a clan of 2. If he were to lose the child, he'd be on his own. So he could kind of see how he identifies with that. So that's fine.
He'd be a solo.
And we do get the child does give the Mando like a "she's right, Dad" kind of look, which I thought was a good contrast to the way that he's been behaving, the entire episode. Is that he does kind of have a moment there where he's like, "Dad, she's right. We got to help him." So he starts to repair the ship, and as he's repairing the ship, the child points out that she has wandered off. Now, why are you wandering off on a strange planet when you're supposed to be protecting your children? This is if you guys haven't noticed, this is kind of a reoccurring theme here. A thought that we keep bringing back up throughout this episode is that this lady seems super, super preoccupied with protecting her family line, but just continues to wander into danger.
Yeah, it just kind of continues the whole theme. Like, with everything else that's also about to happen in the episode, they might as well have just called this, instead of the passenger, like Mando's terrible, horrible, no good day.
So the Mando and the child search for the frog lady, basically following her tracks thanks to Mando's cool helmet, tracking technology. I thought it
available now
here,
in your local Disney parks for $99.99. That's too cheap.
Yeah, that's too cheap. More like $9,999,999. So one little quick thing here is that I found it interesting that he's like, where did she go? And then he immediately looks up and sees the tracks, and it's like, do you turn it on when you need it? Is it always on? Like, you ask the child as if he's really going to know which way she went when you literally have the technology in your helmet to tell you where she went. But whatever. They go in search of her, and they find her, and of all places, in an icy planet, a hot spring, where she's basically taking a bath and helping her keep her eggs warm. Again, great thing to be doing, in the middle of a planet where you have no idea where you are, but that's okay. She's trying to keep her children warm.
The child sees all these eggs in the pool, and he's just thinking, yummy.
Egg drop soup.
Soup's on. So Mando
to the
warns
point
her.
where Mando has to go, no.
Yeah. He gives that firm, fatherly, disapproving wag of his finger. I do that too with my daughter when she goes to try and eat something that she shouldn't be eating. It's like, no. So he helps her collect the eggs. And of course, because for some reason, growing children are always so damn hungry, the child turns around and notices these egg-like pods all over the place on the ground, walks up, opens one, and eats the spider creature found inside. And I didn't notice this at first.
The composer's got this new whimsical theme for the child, and you hear it in the background as he's waddling over to examine the eggs, and it does not match the sense of dread I feel. Knowing what is likely coming. We've got major 1979 alien movie vibes going on with those eggs. You're seeing him eat the one spider, and it's like, we know what's in the rest of those now.
This cannot possibly end well. And the rest of this episode for me is really activating I don't suffer from arachnophobia per se, but I'm just really not a fan of spiders. So when this egg opened up and he takes a bite of that spider creature, I was like, nope, I'm out. I almost turned off the TV. I was like, no, Jon Favreau, no, you're not doing this to me right now. First ants, now spiders. What the hell? So of course,
then we get like dozens and hundreds, however many of the tiny ones, and in the background you see progressively bigger ones coming out until you get the giant, super ultra large one. And all these spiders kind of look similar to there was a species of spiders in Star Wars Rebels, the Krykna.
The Krykna, yes.
And they probably look similar because they're both based on designs for concept art. I believe it was like Knobby White Spider by Ralph McQuarrie that he did for Empire Strikes Back. Mm-hmm. So we kind of continue the theme of like Disney or Favreau, whoever's deciding like, hey, we're going to use every single thing we can from the Star Wars vault, because why not?
I mean, it's there, and I like it. I like that they're pulling some of that stuff that never got used, because Ralph McQuarrie did provide a ton of concept art that ended up, turning into different things throughout Star Wars, and I like that they're calling it back and actually using it. Real quick, because we're talking about Ralph McQuarrie, he did concept art for what eventually became Chewbacca, but didn't actually look anything like Chewbacca ended up becoming. It was the concept art he did for the character Chewbacca. They went in a different direction. And then they end up bringing that back for the character of Zeb in Rebels. So it is really neat for them to take some of this stuff that they didn't use and actually begin using it. I like that a lot. So we get the Queen Krykna show up and begins chasing our trio back to the Razor Crest. And let me tell you that this whole sequence is nightmare fuel for me. Like being chased by more and more spiders, narrowly escaping death multiple times. It was just, I was my skin was crawling watching this scene. And that's, you know,
But
and
Robert,
on one
you
side,
you must have felt relieved once he killed the giant queen one. There couldn't possibly be another that, you know, it mated with or anything pop out of nowhere.
and actually it was, I believe it's the same one. The explosion. So Mando uses some remote bombs to essentially blow up the cavern they're running through and then trap this queen spider, Krykna. And it kind of gets its face burned in that attack. And then later on, when it's descending down, spoiler alert, we kind of fast forward here. They get chased into the ship. They make it into the ship, narrowly avoiding more spiders in a very, very creepy scene where the door is trying to shut on the cockpit and the spiders just keep getting through. By the way, Frog Lady had a freaking gun this whole time and didn't use it till the last second.
Well, I wondered that too. I don't know if maybe it was like a stowaway that the Mandalorian keeps in the cockpit that he can draw real quick, and I thought maybe she found that and was starting to use it.
Maybe.
Well, I just kind of chalked it up. If it wasn't her own, like the Mandalorian has his whole armory down in the bottom of the ship where they were hanging out for a while Mando was sleeping and she was working on the droid. It's not beyond the realm of possibility that she was like, I'm going to go ahead and grab a gun because I don't know, whatever reason.
I don't want to die. That's why. So he uses flamethrower, door shuts. Thank God. They try to take off. And of course, Queen Spider comes back. I say it comes back because as it's coming down on the Razor Crest, you do get a good look at its face. And it does appear to be burned exactly the same way as the one that was trapped in the cavern by Mando earlier.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to give it a third watch to specifically look out for that. Because I just assumed where there's one giant mega Krykna spider, there's got to be another.
Yeah, but it's still.
And I got to give the episode credit. I kind of thought, like, when all this was happening, I thought for sure that we were going to get a child Deus Ex Machina, like via force powers to save the day. But instead, we get some blaster bolts coming out of nowhere, and it's the X-Wing pilots returned. So, yay!
Came back to help Mando out. I thought about how they found him, and I'm guessing the remote bombs to try and defeat the Queen probably tipped them off to their location, because when he does blow it up, the giant spider, the giant Queen spider, does look like it is crawling above ground, because there is a ceiling above them and you can kind of see it crawling, like it's shadow crawling. So it's very possible it was above ground. The explosion brought it below the ground and the X-Wing pilots were still flying around trying to find him and spotted that. So they come to the rescue.
I would chalk it up either to that or a combination of he did power up the Razor Crest because they were trying to get away. So maybe they sensed the heat signature of that or anything. But it could have been any combination of that. The point is they show up.
They show up, save the day. They kill the Queen Krykna, and with the help of their blasters and the Mando coming out, they kill the rest of these god-awful creatures. And a bit of good karma comes Mando's way, because they do point out that he helped the Twi'lek escape the prison ship in Chapter 6 last season. But they also point out that he helped capture 3 other criminals, which I thought was a nice confirmation that they're probably still captive. I was certainly thinking to myself, like, these guys will be back next season. Like, something will happen, they'll escape or whatever. But I think that line from the X-Wing pilots kind of confirms that they are probably still captive at this time. But that works in Mando's favor.
The X-Wing pilots coming back to help him only so much, kind of, I guess, is maybe the moral of the story. Do good things, aka Mandalorian living by his code of honor, and karma may eventually reward you.
Yeah, and they also give him credit for trying to save Matt Lanter's character's life on the prison ship as well. So karma works out in the Mando's favor. He does try to. I thought this was a nice little Mando is still growing kind of thing, because he's like, how about I give you the bounty for those 3 guys I let you keep and you help me fix my ship? And they're basically like, yeah, no. How about you fix that transponder we talked about earlier and we won't blow you out of the sky next time we see you? And then they just buy Felicia out of there and leave him to figure things out on his own. This is another small little nitpick I have about this episode, because the Mando proceeds to fix the cockpit area of the ship so that they can leave the planet. And I'm thinking to myself, like, where did he get the parts to fix it? Because the Queen Spider did basically bust holes in the glass of the cockpit. And so I'm wondering, I maybe I have to go back and maybe look closer at the frame. Maybe he put some metal pieces that he scrapped from other parts of the ship to cover the broken glass or those sections or whatever. But it just felt a little strange that there was enough to fix it.
I'm going to chalk it up to, he has enough tools there to kind of weld something together. He does make a point of, it's only the cockpit area. They're going to be cramped. The rest of the ship is going to be exposed to vacuum. And even makes a joke of like, okay, wake me unless it kind of like, you know, the seal here fails. But if it is, we're all dead anyway. Hachka.
So yeah, he repairs the cockpit. They manage to take off. Man, the Razor Crest can take a beating though. And they manage to take off, and then they leave back in subspace heading to Trask. And we finally get a moment where like the frog lady and the child kind of like, you know, catch each other. Like the child is looking at the pod, and then the frog lady sees the child looking at the pod, and then she kind of wraps her arms around it like, you know, I don't know if I trust you, you know. But then I have to ask myself, like, lady, did you ever bother to count how many eggs were in that pod when all of this started and how many are in there now? You know, like something fishy was definitely going, something froggy. Could you say froggy? Something froggy's going on here. But anyway, you know, she wraps her arms around the pod, kind of like a, you know, no, I'm going to protect my children finally. And we get, I guess the funniest moment of the child eating the eggs is that he managed to sneak just one more and just nom noms the last egg, and then we get the ship flying off in shambles, and then we get the credits.
I get the humor they're going there for with it. It was maybe like a little overkill. Like it's the kind of humor where you almost half expect him to go wink to the camera and then da 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 da. Like come on, the kid, the child, you know, anybody who was unhappy with his lack of screen time last episode, you got more than enough for this episode. Personally, me, probably a bit too much. Like, I don't know. A little bit goes a long way with that type of character.
So that brings us to the wrap up here. We reached the end of the episode. So what are your guys' overall thoughts on this episode? Since James, you were talking about that, we'll go ahead and start with you. What were your overall thoughts on this?
Well, this is obviously a filler type episode. It's like, it doesn't seem like it's impacting the plot a lot. It even kind of like slows it down compared to like the end of last episode where, you know, we get a tease of Boba Fett. Anybody who was thinking like, all right, cool, especially given the cold opening, like, all right, we're going to get some Boba Fett. And then we don't, which is fine. That's fine. I'd rather them kind of maybe stretch that out a little bit. Like I said last episode, I don't need to see Boba Fett tracking them at the end of every episode. So I'm glad we didn't pan back and see him in a ship going, going to get him. But, and hey, at least they can now knock off creature feature off of their film types that they want to homage with this series.
Yeah, sure.
And overall, it's not a bad episode. To me, it's not the greatest. It just, again, it seems like an odd choice to kind of slow things down after the big explosive premiere that we had.
Yeah, I agree with James. It does feel, I don't know if I want to call it a filler episode, but it definitely felt fillery. It does definitely slow down the story a bit here. Despite me not liking the creature feature spider scare that we get in this episode, because I just really don't like spiders. You know, it was good. It was enjoyable. They did Peyton Reed did a very good job. Yeah, the humor of the baby eating the eggs does get a little bit old as the episode progresses, but I felt like there was some pretty good humor here. One thing that I didn't touch on towards the beginning with the bandits and the jetpack is the Peyton Reed does take a time to show the jetpack returning, landing smoothly on the ground and just kind of falling over. And so that was pretty hilarious. So I love the humor in this episode. So there was a lot to like. But but I wish we would have gotten a little bit more. I think the episode probably would have felt a little bit more complete for me if we at least saw them like maybe not land on, but like arriving at their destination. Yeah. Because the way the episode ends is they're just kind of floating off in shambles into space, and then it just cuts to black, and then we get credits. And the implication there is that they still have a ways to go. Now they may just cut to them getting there in the next episode, and that's all well and good, but I feel like just that little extra 2 seconds, or just change that final frame, that instead of space, it was the planet, even if it was very tiny, like way off in the distance, showing that, yeah, they're arriving. They'll be there shortly. We'll see, we'll continue there next time. Would have put the bow on this episode that I needed to really feel great about it. Not that it was a bad episode. It wasn't terrible at all. Nathan?
You see it off in the distance. You slowly approach it. That's no estuary moon. That's a space station.
Nathan?
I thought it was a wonderfully annoying episode. I felt like the entire time I was yelling at my cat to stop eating that damn plastic and start chasing those spiders. That's why I have a cat. It's like, to me, Baby Yoda reminded me of my cat so much. It was annoying. It had good humor. It did kind of drag on with him eat the eggs over and over again. That got really old. And I got really annoyed with the frog lady. It's like, you say you're worried about your brood, but you're really not really showing that you are. And I definitely feel like this is a filler episode, but I'm hoping that they're setting up some kind of plot point for the next episode. Like, let's say they get to the estuary moon they need to go to reunite with his husband and everything. And the husband's like, I'm not going to tell you where these Mandalorians are. I don't know if I can trust you or not. And the wife's going to be like, he's good. He helped us. He killed a lot of spiders. You can trust him. I'm kind of hoping something like that carries over. That way it doesn't feel like it was a complete waste of an episode.
Yeah.
But then Frog Dad is like, okay, here's my spawn. Wait a minute. Where's Timmy?
We're going to need another Timmy. Anyways, let us know what your thoughts are on Chapter 10 in the comments.
Yeah, that wraps up this episode of My Mando and Me. Join us next week for Chapter 11.
If you enjoyed our show, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of My Mando and Me. Thanks again for joining us. See you all in the next one. I really hope there aren't more spiders.
Spiders!
Be good to each other out there.